I'm Tony Brown. In a moment, Banneker, Truth to Power. For those of you who know something of the African American icons made popular by Black History Month, how much do you know about them as three-dimensional people? What were their likes and dislikes, their weaknesses, as well as the strengths and accomplishments we have come to admire? Imagine Benjamin Banneker, a Black in the 1700s, becoming a self-taught surveyor who played a pivotal role in planning the layout of our nation's capital and inventing a clock in 1753. In 1791 alone, he completed the survey of Washington, D.C., published his first almanac, and stepped outside of his own personality to tell Thomas Jefferson and the Founding Fathers just how wrong they were to ignore the rights of blacks. A classic example of speaking truth to power. Charles Sarami, former editor of the Kiplinger Washington Publications, is the author of Benjamin Banneker, surveyor, astronomer, publisher, patriot. Thank you very much for being with me.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Mr. Sarami, you've written a number of books. Why did you decide to write on, if I may say, rather obscure characters such as Benjamin Banneker? Why Benjamin Banneker?
Well, I'm not going to follow this all the way from the time I was 8 years old, but I was 8 years old when I first asked my mother, what does that mean that I had heard it said that a black man had been the one who surveyed the city of Washington? And I didn't even know what surveyed meant, but I knew that black people were supposed to do the heavy lifting, and they didn't usually get jobs of that kind. And I asked that question.
Now, what year are we talking about?
1790. That happened. And
what was the survey?
Washington at that time is always spoken of as having been a swamp. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was bad enough so that it was a hellish place to survey, because a surveyor really would have no marked places to follow, to start with these lines. And the Constitution called for Washington to be exactly 10 square miles in each direction, and those lines had to be straight because they were taken away from Maryland and Virginia. You couldn't steal more from the other states than was provided. So it was extremely important to do it, and yet it was almost like trying to survey at sea. There are so many places that just were not, and were swampy, were not straight land, you know. So what they needed was a thing called an astronomical clock. And that's the strange thing here is that the man that they asked onto the team that was supposed to be the black person who didn't have mental endowments and so on was given the really high-tech job in this case, because it was a type of clock that was also attached to views of the stars at the same time. And each morning he had to make sure that they picked up surveying at the same place they had left behind the night before. So that
and
was...
he calibrated this with the stars.
That's right. So this was something he did for over 2 months to get started on setting out the 4 main lines that would be the city of Washington.